Hello, 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 and welcome to the Enrich Your Business Circle podcast, where today we will dive into more stories and strategies that empower entrepreneurs to thrive in business and in life. I'm your host, Rick Bennett, and today's episode is going to be another transforming to episode. We're going to talk about conflict to connection, both in your personal relationships and in your business. Our guest is none other than the Dr. Dan Sneider, a renowned therapist and creator of the Intimacy Shift. And welcome to the show on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about all kinds of relationships and how they affect our business, our personal life, and everything in between.
Awesome. So Dan, can you kind of give our audience a little bit more background about yourself? I kind of gave like a synopsis of who you are, but I'm definitely sure they would want to know more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I like to say that I'm a mix of both worlds. I'm a helper as a therapist, but I also run a business and do sales, do marketing. Want to really have good customer satisfaction, get referrals. So it's both worlds, and yeah, I come by that honestly. I was raised by my dad, who's an accountant and a lawyer, and my mom, who was a nurse and then a teacher. So I had a lot of lessons growing up about business mindset and accounting methods and fine print, as well as really like active listening skills, going deep with people about their feelings. So, yeah, today in my work, I bring all of that to bear in my work. And I'm really focused on helping people with their relationships. And that comes from my own personal life, being a parent. I have two kids. I have an ex wife now, but I was married, and I have a new partner. And so building that relationship using all the things that I've learned through school and through expertise with the clients that I serve. So, yeah, that's a little bit more about me. And yeah, very much, love getting in with couples and talking about how their relationships are impacted by the stress of work and entrepreneurship, parenting, how that changes over time and your intimate relationships shift as your business life shifts and, vice versa.
Awesome. It seems like you have a lot of different things that you're balancing in life. And I really want to kind of tie that into like the core of your work. As a therapist, how does the ability to really balance and manage that along with like conflict of personal relationships or how does it kind of directly translate into your entrepreneur ability? Because sometimes when you can't balance the personal life, it impacts the entrepreneur side of things.
Yeah, such an important question because we are one person, right? When we go to work, when we come home, when we're with our friends, like we're the same person, but we have all these different relationships and
Right.
expectations. And
Mhm.
how we show up in our business life might be very different from how we're expected to show up at home with our partner or with our kids. And so I see that all the time in my sessions where one person will talk about the stress that they're under from their day. And if they're an entrepreneur, and they're carrying the weight of the business really on their shoulders and the ups
Mhm.
and downs, the roller coasters of being the person making the decisions, often, they don't feel understood. They don't feel like the pressures and the demands of that role are seen.
Mhm.
And when we get home and we're not able to switch from one hat to another, it can cause conflict. It can cause arguments. And so
Mhm.
I really work with people to bridge that gap and to be able to smoothly transition from one to the other and to use a lot of the same skills. Because as an entrepreneur, you're absolutely working with people, right? There's people at home, there's people at work, and we have to be able to listen. We have to be able to express ourselves in ways that the other person can understand, in both places. So it's a lot of the same skills. And even though we're one person switching hats back and forth, We
Mhm.
want to be able to use those skills effectively in the two places.
I love it, and it's really about balancing multiple hats or shifting different hats based on what you're doing in that moment. And I know that part of that you have the intimacy shift, which is about shifting a place in a relationship, and it's one of your signature programs. So can you kind of give like the core principle around moving from conflict to lasting connection as it relates to that program in your personal life?
Mhm. Yeah, so the name of my website, the name of my program, intimacyshift.com, or my intimacy shift program, really speaks to throughout our life, things will go up and down, they will change, and it's how we respond to those changes. It's not about there never being shifts or changes, it's knowing what to do when that happens.
Okay.
So whether that's in business, whether that's in your relationship, really being able to have a system in place where you can smoothly respond and pivot and adjust to those changes. So, some of the skills that I teach to go from whatever conflict you're experiencing, whether it's at work or at home, are number one, being able to have a time set aside where we can talk about the issue,
Mhm.
right? So, we're not, when it's a good time for me and a bad time for you, if we try to talk then, it's not going to go well. So, we want to make sure we're setting up a time for both people to be able to sit down and talk about it. And then the
Mhm.
second thing, we want to make sure both people are in a place where they are settled and physically kind of ready to talk through things. So if I show up to a conversation and I'm hungry, tired, I just had a bad meeting, I'm not in a good place to have this conversation. So I know that I have to get myself right for the conversation. And then the probably the biggest thing that I'll talk through with people is using I language. So, so often we are using you language to talk about a problem. You did this wrong. I
Mhm.
saw you make this mistake. I need you to do that differently. And whenever we're using you language like that, it comes across as critical, as attacking, and it brings up defensiveness in the other person. So whether we're working with a vendor, an employee, a client, or our intimate partner at home, we really want to get in the habit of using I language to
Right.
approach them. So, there's something that I need to address this issue. Or,
Mhm.
when I looked at that, email, I looked at that spreadsheet, I noticed there were some things missing and it's important to our business, right? Now we're on a team, our business, or
Right.
I really want to make sure that this presentation looks rock solid. How can we address it? So using I language to talk about my feelings, or we or our team-based approach so that we can collaborate on the issue. And just those quick couple things can
Mhm.
solve so many of the conflicts that we find ourselves in as, busy, stressed out people, running our businesses, trying to manage our relationships.
I love that. So and with that managing and work life balance, what are like some things that can be more so intentionally integrated? I know you mentioned setting time aside where both people are on neutral grounds, where it's not more beneficial to the other person or things like that. How do you get to that point or space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're all working with the same 24 hours in the day, which it can feel limiting to me. There's lots of times where I wish I had some extra hours. Um, and, there is plenty of time to take even just 1 minute or 5 minutes.
Right.
There's so much pressure to perform that we often don't feel like we have 5 minutes to be able to take care of ourselves. And guaranteed, if I don't take care of myself, I'm going to lash out at somebody that day. Somebody's going to get it because that frustrated, pent up energy has to go somewhere. So I
Mhm.
really want people to think about taking time for themselves as an investment in their business, in their relationships, spending that 5 minutes to take a walk around the block, to
Mhm.
listen to a song without checking your email, or like people will be checking their phone walking from one room of their house to the other. I know I've been guilty of it. I work from home and I'll get up from a meeting and I'll be like looking at my email while I go to the kitchen to grab something. And I'm not taking that 2 minutes just to take a deep breath and to come
Mhm.
back into my body and take care of myself. So that's so much of this, right? It's like that old kind of cliche thing. Like when you're on the airplane, you put the mask on yourself first before you put it on the person next to you. Because if I don't take care of myself, I'm not going to be able to take care of somebody else. And so that's a really huge thing.
And it seems like you're helping people or motivating people to be in the moment more than being distracted by other things. And I know you also practice or focus on like growth and gratitude. Are those elements that you're getting people to kind of practice more so when it comes to being focused in the moment so that they can have that balance with personal and their business side of things?
Yeah, yeah. So great question. So two of my personal values are growth and gratitude, and those are things that not only are important for me, but really important for everybody, and messages that I want to share. So the growth element, and some of your listeners may be familiar with Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And the idea there is, in our lives, are we able to change and grow and to become? Or do we have a fixed, static view of the world where, the skills and abilities I have are all that I will have and things are scarce? So that growth mindset really comes into play, which whether it's business or personal life, I'm going to make mistakes, right? Not perfect, neither are your listeners, right? And the idea again is, how can we take that approach of responding rather than reacting? So if I don't show up exactly the way I wanted to today, I have an opportunity to learn from that, grow, and to show up in a better way tomorrow. And that comes from self-reflection, and that comes from pausing, being here in that present moment. If I'm thinking 10 steps ahead, I'm not going to be able to take care of what I need to take care of today. I'm going to overlook something. I'm going to interrupt somebody. I'm not going to take the time and have the patience to work on what I is right in front of me. So that's that growth element. The gratitude piece of it again is again just investing in yourself. So the more that I notice what's going well around me, the better things are going to go, the more positive my outlook is on the day, and the more opportunities I'm going to see. If I'm
Okay.
always focused on the problems, what's not going right, what I need to fix, I'm not going to have the same mindset to think creatively and to solve problems. So that gratitude really has a ripple effect in your day and in your work.
Also, and it seems like that gratitude is more so to kind of keep you in line, but that growth aspect of it is about relationship and connection.
Mhm.
And and when it comes to like building those lasting connections for growth, and in the context of building a business, if lasting connections are like your goal for growth, what are like three fundamental blocks that must be established first for entrepreneurs?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I really appreciate the way that you said that because our connections, right? All of us are in some kind of people business,
Right.
you know, and so our connections are incredibly valuable. We don't know who is going to help us down the road, what kind of partnerships we're going to benefit from.
Mhm.
And another saying that I love is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, it's been really powerful for me, and there are so many times where I want to go fast. It's fun to go fast, I wanna get it done, I can take care of it myself, But truly building a long-term sustainable business involves partnerships, involves people.
Mhm.
Just before you pressed record on this call, we were talking about one of your assistants, somebody that I had been emailing with, someone you partner with to help you so that you're freed up to do other important elements of your business. And it's the same for me, right? I want to focus on the parts of my work that I can do best. And I want to outsource or partner with people that have a different area of expertise and leverage their skills, their time, and their energy. But if I'm closed off to that and think I can do it all myself, or, I'm writing kind of like critical emails to people, or, I'm showing up in a way that people don't want to work with me, then that's
Mhm.
going to affect my business. It's going to affect my relationships. And so I try to bring that into every single meeting I have, every interaction I have. I want to be helpful and kind, patient, because I don't know how that person could partner with me in the future.
And I love the fact that you say that because I feel that many entrepreneurs either end up bottlenecking themselves because they don't understand that process. And many times as an entrepreneur, you get so caught up of being a solopreneur, as you
Mhm.
say, of doing and wearing multiple hats. When it's time to branch out and connect with other people, you don't know how to let go of certain hats in order to really grow and build more connection and relationship in that process.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And it's been a lesson that I've learned. I've been doing this practice, that I have for more than 10 years now. And for at least the first 6 years, I wanted to do everything myself. I wanted to, I can learn how to do Google ads, and I can book myself in marketing campaigns and respond to the emails and do the sessions.
Mhm.
And I could do all of those things, but I couldn't do them all as well as I wanted to, or as well as somebody who does just that one thing, and that's their work. But it did take me time to get there, for certain. And I see this in the couples that I serve. So much of the work that I do is about those romantic relationships at home, husbands, wives, partners. And it plays out in managing the household too. We've got two strong adults at home who are both capable, independent people. And one person does the laundry one way, one person does it another, and we end up in these arguments about who did it right, or who folded the laundry more often that month, who cooked the most dinners. And we get in these competitions, and
Mhm.
we end up, really like feeling hurt, feeling unseen. And it's a similar situation where we want to leverage each person's skills, we want to build each other up, and we want to divide and conquer that way.
And I love the fact that you mentioned that because I can definitely get that. Like my husband, he folds almost everything and put it
Mhm.
in a drawer. Whereas I would say 90% of my clothes, I always hang them up, even if it's a t-shirt or a tank top, because I hate wrinkled clothes.
Mhm.
And so that's my take on it. And then I started going through the process of I was like, well, this is what I'll do. The clothes that I know I hang up, if I'm doing your clothes, I'm hanging your clothes up. And then the clothes that I feel that can just be folded, then I'll put those away in the drawer. And we had to come to like a median of it because sometimes he doesn't have time to do laundry and I'm the one that's stuck doing the laundry. And
Mhm.
I was like, so this is what we'll do. So I definitely get that. When you have like two different types of personalities around it. And I know for me, I grew up in a very disciplined household where my parents were military. So it was this way, this way, this way, and you have to stick to it. Whereas for him, that was not like that. So we had to really just merge those ideas and blend them and delegate different things in the household to different people so that there is some type of balance for growth and reduce conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in that example, right? There had to be a lot of communication, probably over years, of hurt feelings and why did you hang this up? Why didn't you? But yeah, at the end of the day, like the relationship was more important than, we're doing it my way and my way is the only way. So for the relationship to move past that, we had to figure out like we're on the same team, what makes the most sense that we can both live with, and then you move forward from there.
And is there any advice that you would give the audience of how to get into that space? Because everyone tackles things differently. So if there are like some steps that will really help people um know how to delegate things better or how to share the burden with other people, what would you say?
hmm Yeah. So I was actually on a session last night with a couple, and one of the people said something that I hear a version of this pretty regularly. He said, I'm in a sales role at work, and
Mhm.
all day long, I'm trying to convince people to see the world the way I want them to see them, to persuade them. If they change the subject, I'm often wanting to interrupt them to get them back on this way. And when I get home, I can't use those skills with my partner because we end up arguing. They feel like I'm not listening to them. How do I come home and switch what I'm doing so that we can be in better harmony?
Mhm.
And I hear some version of that, every week. And one thing that I'll advise people to do is think about the transitions in your day. So when you're transitioning from work to home, if you're driving, then you have a drive before you get home. If you're working from home, then at the very least, you can close your computer and take a couple minutes to yourself. But with that transition time, I really want people to get into their five senses. This is a quick way to transition from one mindset to another. Use your five senses to notice what you are seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing around you. So take a few moments to take some deep breaths, notice where you are, notice your space, and then set an intention for how you want to show up at home. And, again, like that present moment thing we were talking about before, by doing that, instead of just reacting to whatever it is when you go into the house and come in the door, now you have taken a moment to reset and made a plan. You've set an intention. When I walk in the house, I want to, for a lot of people, it's, I just want a peaceful night. I just want to relax. So if you want a peaceful night and you want to relax, then you're not going to be right about everything. It may not always go your way. And the mindset really does need to shift into like, how can tonight be peaceful and relaxing? And for me, that's often like we're a team. So how can not maybe all of my needs get met, but how can we as a unit, have the night that we want to have, or the day we want to have? And same idea in the mornings. If you're working typical hours, your transition from home to work is in the mornings. And I'll take a pause in the morning to really set my intention for my workday, how I want to show up. And that puts me in the right frame of mind for, that role for that day.
I love it. And again, thank you, Dr. Dan, for being on our show on today. Could you also let the audience know how they can get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So I know that it is primarily entrepreneurs and business focused podcasts. So today I've really wanted to expand some of the work I do to include situations for entrepreneurs and for business situations. My website is intimacyshift.com. And if anybody listening is struggling with that transition from work to home or home to work, or they're noticing their romantic relationship affected by their business, by their entrepreneurship, visit my website, leave your email. It's the best way to connect with me. And when you leave your email, you're going to get a free 12-page guide with a lot of the principles I've shared today and 6 proven steps to have better, healthier conversations with either a business partner or a romantic partner to talk through life's challenging situations.
Thank you again. And thank you for joining us on today, Dr. Dan. And for those who are listening, um, The information will be in our show notes, and those who are watching the video format of the podcast, you will see it in the podcast, in the description for the video, as well as flashing across the screen. So for all of our listeners, you can definitely learn more about Dr. Dan's work either way. Um, and we encourage you to like, share, and implement this so that you can build lasting connections to grow your business. Until next time, keep enriching your business and your life.